Okay, so we're starting another section here. This is section 3.6, which deals with the point slope form. So there are three forms we need to know, okay? And we already talked about two of them. One is in standard form, ax plus by equals c. The other form is slope-intercept form. Basically, it's y equals mx plus b, right? Y equals mx plus b. And so then the last form we need to know is the point slope form, okay? Which is basically y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. Now, does anybody know where this point slope form is coming from? If you look at it carefully, you might notice or recognize where it's coming from. It's just been rearranged. Does anybody know? That's exactly right. It's coming from a slope formula. The point slope form comes from a slope formula, right? So slope formula is m is equal to y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. So they just move the denominator and put it here to the left, right? Okay, so you have m times x2 minus x1 equals y2 minus y1. And then that's it. Okay, that's what this is. They just, if I rewrite it, it'd be like this. Okay, so this is the same as this. Okay, that's where it's coming from. All right. So we want to write, so we're given a graph here, and we want to write this in point slope form. We want to write it in this form, okay? And we use this form a lot in calc, believe it or not, more than y equals mx plus b, because it's so much easier to use than y equals mx plus b. But we use this form a lot in calc. So in this case, we have this graph here. What's going to be our m? What's our m here? What's the slope? Exactly. It's going to be negative 2 over 1, right? Because it's rise over run. So 1, 2, you go up 2, then over 1, right? 2 over 1. Well, this is a negative slope, so we have to put a negative there. So m in this case is going to be negative 2 over 1, okay? All right, so then what's going to be our x1 and y1? What's our x1 and y1? Exactly, right? 1, negative 1. Or you can pick any point on this line. You'll get the same answer. So, but use that one is easy because it's right on the grid line. So 1, negative 1. So in this case, this is my x and that's my y. Okay? So x, I'm going to put 1, and y, I'm going to put negative 1. Then I just simplify. Y plus 2, sorry, y plus 1 is equal to negative 2 times x minus y. And that's all we have to do. That's in point slope form. All right, so here's another problem you can try. Okay, so same question. We want, based off this graph, okay, we need to figure out the equation is for the point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So we need to figure out this point slope form. Okay, so see if you can do that. Okay, so here we want we found m, which was 1/3. We went rows 1 and run over 3. So that's 1/3. And x1 and y1 is what they already give us. So you can pick any point on this line, but just use the point they give you. So this is our x1, and here's our y1, -1, -1. That's easy. Just plug that in there. And again, we already know what m is, okay? And it's a positive slope, and so the graph is positive, and then our number should be positive. If they're different, then we did something wrong. And then y, two negatives, right? X1 is -1 and y1 is -1. So two negatives here make a positive. So you have y plus 1, and then you have 1/3 times x plus 1. And then that's it. That's our answer. Okay, so again, we still want to use the point slope form. In this case, they want us to find the equation of the point slope form. And they tell us that it's passing through it's passing through 3, -1, and 1, -4. Okay, so first we need to find our slope. Okay, go ahead and do that. What's going to be our slope? Okay, so remember the slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, right? That's the slope formula. So then we just need to plug these numbers that they gave us. You can label this x1, y1, or you can label this x1, y1. It doesn't matter, okay? In the end, you'll get the same result. So let's label this x2, y2. So then I just plug it in. So we have -4 minus -1. And then we have x2, which is 1, minus 3. So that's going to give us a -4. Two negatives is a +1, and 1 minus 3. So -4 plus 1 is a -3. Okay, and then 1 minus 2 is -2. So that becomes 3 over 2, because two negatives will make that a positive. Okay, so this is the slope. All right, so we found the slope. Now we just need y1 and x1. Well, here it is. Again, you can pick this point or you can pick this point. It doesn't matter. Okay, so let's pick the first one. So y minus -1 equals 3/2 x, okay, minus 3. So let's simplify this a little bit. So two negatives can be a positive. So y plus 1, okay, equals 3/2 x. Well, we don't have to distribute that because again, we want it in point slope form. So y plus 1, 3/2 times x minus 3. And that's it. Okay, so again, this is in point slope form. Okay, so now that's in point slope form. So let's say, all right, you got it in point slope form. Now they want it in slope intercept form. Well, that's easy, right? Again, slope intercept form is y equals mx plus b. So we just got to distribute here the 3/2 to each one. So we get y plus 1 is equal to 3/2 x. And then we'll have minus 9 over 2 when we distribute the 3/2 for each. Okay? So again, this is in point slope Okay, and we're trying to solve it for slope-intercept. So in this case, we'll subtract 1 on both sides. So we have y is equal to 3 half x. And then that'll be what? Minus 9 half minus 2 over 2. Okay, so that's going to give us y is equal to 3 half x minus 11 over 2. So that would be our answer if it was in slope-intercept form. So if they want in slope-intercept form, intercept. Okay, then this will be our answer. Hold on here. Nope, I'm good. All right, so I've been claiming that if you use any of those points, you should get the same answer, all right? So let's try it now with 1, -4. So we tried it with 3, -1, okay? And we got y is equal to 3 half x minus 11 over 2. So let's do it for the other point. All right, so let's see if we get the same answer. All right, so this will be our x1, y1 now, okay? It was our second point on the other one, but we're claiming it to be x1, y1. So we have y minus -4 equals m, which is 3 halves, right? That's what they gave us. Okay. And that'll be 3 half, let's do it this way, times x minus x1. So two negatives is going to give us a positive, so that's going to be y plus 4. And then we're going to distribute that 3 halves. So that would be 3 half x, okay, minus 3 half. Um, Hold on a second. Oh, I forgot to put uh, the x1, which was 1. So do that right now. Okay. So we said y1, right, was -4. That's what we have here. And then x1, okay, which was the x2 there, but anyway, is 1. So that's what we need to put there, 1. So that's our x1 is 1 and our y1 is -4. Anyway, so we get y, two negatives are positive, so that's y plus 4. Then we distribute, gives us 3 half x minus 3 halves. Okay, so then we just subtract 4 on both sides. Okay, so we have 3 half x. And then minus 3 halves minus 4. Well, I need the same denominator, so I'm going to multiply top and bottom by 2. So that gives me -3 halves minus 8 over 2. Okay, which gives us -11 over 2. All right, so you get the same exact answer as the previous one. Okay, 3 half x minus 11 over 2. 3 half x minus 11 over 2. Okay, so we have the 2 points here, 2, 4, -1, -3. We need to write in point slope form. So we need the slope formula, right? y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So here's our x1, y1. Here's our x2, y2. So I plug it in there, I get -3 minus 4 divided by -1 minus 2. So that gives us -7 on top and -3 on the bottom. So that gives us a 7/3 as our slope. So I'm going to put 7/3 here. Okay. Now I can choose, which one I want for x1 or y1. It doesn't matter. I'll go with this one because there's no negatives. Or if there was a zero, I would do that one because it'll be a lot easier to calculate. So y minus 4, okay, and then x minus x1, which is x minus 2. All right. So this is a possibility. If you pick the other one, that's fine. That'll be y minus negative 3, and then x minus negative 1. Okay, so that would be y plus 3 is 7/3 times x plus 1. Okay, again, you like, oh, these are two different. No, they're the same. You just have to solve them for y, and you'll get the same result. Okay. Okay, here it says the cost of buying 5 gallons of fuel oil is $12, and the cost of buying 15 gallons of fuel oil is $36. What is the cost of gallon of fuel oil? Find the slope-intercept form of a line that models the cost of buying X gallons of fuel oil. Interpret the slope as a rate of change. C, find and interpret the x-intercept. D, sketch a graph that shows the cost of buying 20 gallons or less of fuel oil. And E, the point 11, 26.40 lies on the graph. Explain its meaning. All right, so for the first one, we want to find out what is the cost of a gallon of fuel oil. Well, we just take the costs, right? We just take the dollar amount divided by the gallons. So in this case, it's 12 divided by 5. Or you can do the other one as well, 36 divided by 15, okay? Anyway, you get $2.40, right? Same thing for this one, $2.40, okay? All right, so that's A, the cost of a gallon of fuel oil. Part B, find the slope-intercept form. So remember, slope-intercept form is y is equal to mx plus b, okay? We already know the slope, right? The slope here in this case is $2. That's the rate. So y is equal to 240x plus b, okay? All right, so does it have a starting point? Well, um, well, what happens when x is equal to 0 and y is equal to 0? What happens there? Well, if you plug that in there, okay, y is 0, 240 times 0, okay, plus b. So in this case, we get 0 equals 240 times 0 is 0 plus b. So b is equal to 0. Okay, so there's no starting point. So b is 0. So in this case, for b here, or we would get y still 2.40x plus 0, or just y is equal to 2.40x. Okay, right? So that's for part B. Now, part C says find the x-intercept. We talked about that in previous sections. To find the x-intercept, we just set y is equal to 0. Okay, so here we would have what? So this is part C. Okay, it would have y is equal to 2.40x, and then we're going to set y equals 0. So 0 is equal to 2.40x. Then we're going to solve for x. So divide both sides by 240. So x gives us 0. Okay? So what does this mean? This means there's no charge. There's no charge for 0 gallons of oil. Okay? And then for part D, right, they want us to sketch a graph that shows the cost of buying 20 gallons or less of fuel oil. So I know this is a little bit harder to do, but our graph should look something like this. Okay, so this is part D. All right. So again, our y-intercept was at 0. Okay, and this is the slope or the rate of this a particular problem. Okay. All right, and then part E says the point 11, 26, 40 lies on the graph and explain its meaning. So if we were to plot that here, so there's 10, there's 15, so it's probably like 12 and a half, so 11 is about right here, right? So right about right here or something, okay? So it's asking, okay, what does this mean, right? So it's saying that for 11 gallons of oil, all right, it will cost $26.40. So 11 gallons of oil, it would cost $26.40. Okay, I want to expand a little bit on D real quick. All right, I'm giving you the graph here, but how do they get the graph? Well, we know that the y-intercept or it starts at 0, 0. Okay, there's no starting cost or anything like that. We just know that the rate is going by $2.40 per gallon. So anyway, so that's why it's at 0, 0. How do we find the other point here? Well, it's saying, what would it cost of buying 20 gallons of oil? Well, we know that the cost per gallon is $2.40. So if I put $2.40 here and then multiply this by 20 gallons, okay, so that will, yeah, so that will give us 48, okay? So that would be a total of $48 for 20 gallons of oil, okay? So in this case, that's why they have 50 here. So this point here is going to be 2.4, $2.40, and then 48, right? So that's how they're getting that other point. And as you know, to create a line, you just need 2 points. Okay. All right, any questions on here? Thank you for that. That's correct. This should be 20.48, not 2.40, $2.40. This should be 20.48. Thank you. All right, says here the outside temperature was 40 degrees Fahrenheit at 1 a.m. and 15 degrees Fahrenheit at 6 a.m. Assume that the temperature changed at a constant rate. A, at what rate did the temperature change? And B, find the slope-intercept form of a line that models the temperature. T, at x a.m., interpret the slope as a rate of change. Okay, so in this case, we have to use the information that we just learned in this section. Okay. So y minus y1 is equal to mx minus x1. Okay, so first we need to find our slope. Okay, so our slope here is going to come from this information here. So A, okay, it says it's 40 degrees at 1 a.m. Okay, so 40 degrees at 1 a.m. So we can write that as 1 and then 40 degrees. Okay. The other one is because a lot of times X, right? And the reason why I put 1 there is a lot of times X deals with time and Y deals with cost or total or an output of something. Okay. So some kind of output. Okay. So that's why I put 1 there because we're dealing with time for X. So the first one here, 40 degrees at 1 a.m., I put 1 and 40 degrees. The second point is this one. That's going to be 6 and 15 degrees. Okay? So these are the 2 points we're going to need for this. So this will be our x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay? So our slope is y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. So slope will be, I'm sorry, y2 would be 15, right? Minus 40 divided by 6 minus 1. Well, 15 minus 40 is negative 25, and 6 minus 1 is 5. So that's going to give us negative 5 degrees Fahrenheit per hour. Okay? So that's our M. Right? So it says, at what rate did the temperature change? Here it is, negative 5 degrees Fahrenheit per hour. Okay? Now, B, all right, it says find the slope-intercept form. Well, we know the point slope form, so we can use this to solve it, find the point slope form and then transfer it into a slope-intercept form. So I'm going to use this as my point, okay? So I'll have y minus y1, which is 40 degrees. M is negative 5, and my x1 is going to be 1, okay? So I'll have y minus 40, negative 5x plus 5. So I'm going to distribute the negative 5, right? Then we're going to add 5 to both sides. I'm sorry, 40 to both sides. Okay? So y is equal to negative 5x plus 45. So this here, this is our slope intercept form. Okay? So we use the point slope form again. This is the point slope. So we use the point slope to get to the slope intercept form. That's probably the easiest way to do it. Okay? All right, so we found the slope-intercept form, and then it says interpret the slope as a rate of change. So we have negative 5, right? So that means it's what? The temperature is decreasing at negative 5 or 5 degrees Fahrenheit per hour.